I'm going to call the monthly meeting of the Stormwater Committee to order. It's Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. It's 1:15 p.m. We're in the upper level meeting room at the Old Town Hall. This is a public meeting being audio recorded, audio and is it video also? Audio and video recorded, cable broadcast and internet posting on www.dayton-ma.gov and YouTube. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Pilling.
Here.
Mr. Mello.
Here.
Mr. Ferry.
Here.
Mr. Figueredo.
Here.
School art here. Mr. Figueredo is here representing the planning board in place of Mr. Wood. Okay, we've got one item that we wanted to take out of order. Is this 5A? Ross?
No, it would be the railroad bed
For it.
cleanup, Diana, from mosquito control. So that's first on the agenda. She just needs to leave. And we have that hearing at 1:30.
4G?
Okay.
A,
Is there a motion to take agenda item 4A out of order?
I'll make that.
You have a
We're
motion?
not out of order because we haven't gone into the public hearing yet, so technically it's the first item.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, Joe. All right, so would you come to the podium, please, and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Diana Brennan. I'm the Wetlands Coordinator for Bristol County Mosquito Control Project. So, I guess I'll just give some backstory on the work we did there. So we were contacted by Mr. Enos at 2421 County Street about the ditch or the railroad bed that runs behind his property. And that we could do some ditch maintenance there to alleviate some mosquito breeding concerns. So my predecessor planned the project originally, and I took over in 2017. We dug a drainage ditch up into the back of the property. That is our best, not guess, but our best professional judgment of where the old drainage ditch used to be. There were no traces of it left. And then we stopped at a certain point because there was a wetland that was acting as a vernal pool that had more mosquito predators in it than mosquito larvae. And so in our best professional judgment, we decided that we would end the ditch there and that larvicide was a better option for mosquito treatment.
And I have a question. Did you say Mr. Enos asked you to go to the site in 17?
He asked my predecessor prior to that. He's the contact person on the file.
Okay, but you came out at the request of, I thought, the Stormwater Committee or Mr. Ferry this time.
Yes, so
Okay,
we had cleaned the ditch back to the pond in the back.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Enos came back multiple times to hopefully have us clean farther out and drain that pond. So Mr. Ferry and I have been in contact today. We went and did a site meeting today to review the reasons why we didn't drain that pond in the first place. So this is sort of just a synopsis of what I had done. Yep. So it's a mosquito issue. Myself and the entomologist determined that larvicide was the best approach for mosquito control in that pond. Question.
okay, so my understanding, the reason we asked Bristol County to come out again is to look at the illegal dumping and filling to give us some guidance about how much has to be removed along that railroad bed, not only his property, but the property of Dr. Vaught,
Right,
the
so
south.
that's kind of outside of my purview. So my mandate is strictly regarding mosquito habitat. So any of often my work correlates to stormwater management because often mosquitoes breed in clogged stormwater drains and in stormwater impounded areas. So there's often like a win-win when I do my mosquito control. There's also benefits for stormwater management. But in this case, there's a sort of a discrepancy between my mosquito control goals and the goals of alleviating that issue.
Okay, but what we were looking for was not so much Mr. Enos's problem. Dr. Vaught has an area behind his home. The last time we were there early spring, it was green. This water is not flowing.
Right.
When he bought the house, I don't know how many times he hired the mosquito guys to come out. And they said, you're wasting your money. That water has got to be freed. So have you seen Dr. Vaught's property?
I have.
This is the property that the two abut each other. This is
Okay,
Not Mr. Enos with the,
Oh, yes, there's.
there's two Enos.
which Enos did you
Yeah.
visit, Ralph?
Ow.
Oh,
Okay.
he's not on the problem list.
Sorry, there's a,
Screen a little ways, that's up against lots, so.
thank you.
But so what about the green water at Dr. Vaught's property?
So that water is where I observed amphibian breeding. And also, when I went out there I dipped with we call it a dipper, but it's basically a white cup that we use to check for larvae. And I also put out some larval traps. And when I dipped and did those traps, what I observed was that there were more mosquito predators, dragonfly larvae, other kinds of aquatic beetles and things like that eat mosquito larvae than I actually found mosquito larvae. So my mandate is to, and my best management practices are that I have to use my best professional judgment, especially if there's potentially a vernal pool involved, to assess the risk benefit of draining versus other methods of mosquito control. So in this particular instance, we felt that draining would be more detrimental than helpful to the resource,
Mhm, mhm.
and that the mosquito larva could be effectively controlled in that location
Okay.
with the larvicide.
Okay. We had also talked about the fact that when Dr. Vaught bought that property, it had already been filled in. Somebody built a house and filled in
Right.
out of that railroad bed. Is the vernal pool the green water we saw?
Yes. And to be clear, it's not a certified vernal pool mapped, but I observed amphibian breeding going.
Okay,
on. So that's why I'm using that word.
so is there flow along that area that you noticed?
It was difficult to say today because of the drought. So there was no flow coming out today.
Okay.
In the past, the ditch that we did bring up to close to that area has had water flowing in it down into the catch basin system.
Mhm.
There is a very narrow, so where the fill area that you're talking about kind of abuts Mr. Enos's property, it narrows down the railroad bed significantly.
Right.
And there's a choke point with some debris and sediment
Right.
that do hold water back. So
Okay.
even if I were to remove some of the debris, tree stumps, things like that, there would still be some
Narrowing.
standing water in there.
Right, and the narrowing is still there.
Right.
Okay. So did you say you put larvicide in that pool?
It's on the larvicide list, so that's a
Okay.
different group than the wetlands coordinator, but I did confirm this morning with our admin assistant that it is still on the larvicide list.
Which means somebody will do it?
It should, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Did you happen to meet Dr. Vaught? Was he around?
I met many of the people who lived, I met all of the people who lived abutting this area in 2017.
Okay, he wouldn't have been there then.
Yeah, okay. So I haven't met.
Okay. Does anybody have questions about anything you've heard? Okay, so the only thing I would ask is that when they actually do the larvicide, if you could let Tom Ferry know, just so he can give us an update. And And will your, whoever's going to do it, will they notify Dr. Vaught ahead of time?
They can certainly, can I be provided with his contact information?
Yes, Mrs. Grassi can give that to you. And I will tell you, he's been very cooperative, said we could go on his property anytime, which we wouldn't do without somebody there anyhow. But I think he'll be relieved because obviously he had been spending money for nothing because of the mosquitoes.
Yeah,
And maybe the drought for him was a blessing this summer. But at least he knows that there are natural forces eating larvae, but also you're going to put down something so that's
specifically targets.
problem.
Larva, yep.
I don't know how many times he had them come out and the man told him, you're wasting your money.
Right.
So anyhow, does anybody have no questions, no comments, anything? We're all set?
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks.
We'll let, so now my question is, when you were out there this last time, did you encounter anybody that gave you grief? Don't say the name.
Other than Mr. Ferry?
Did any of
There
that,
was only one neighbor who came out to speak to us, and there was someone who had requested that we not do work on their property. So we hadn't worked on their property.
who was the brother of the original person who contacted you? Yeah. No?
A different neighbor.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you very much for coming in.
Next time I see you.
We've got just a couple of minutes. Do we have anything on agenda item 4B? We heard from DEP. Oh, 2371.
I'm sorry, for B.
Yeah.
I reached out to DEP. Apparently, Mr. McCutch, chief over there, who met us on site. He lost his assistant. She's now working for VHB. And as I recall, he was trying to retire soon, so. The agreement that we're waiting for from DEP is all on, everything's on hold until they figure stuff out, but he said he would be in touch with the date for a meeting for, so
Oh,
we'd be having like an in-person meeting, not on site, to discuss an agreement with 2371 County Street.
he's gonna meet with the Concom?
Yeah.
Okay. So when that's gonna happen, if you'd let us know so that
Waiting for months.
so that anyone from Stormwater that wants to be there, because obviously we're all wondering what's going to happen. And since Concom's taken the lead, what else can be done on the part of Stormwater? Okay,
Right.
so we'll wait to see what they tell Concom. Okay,
Sounds good.
we have anything on 4C, Wellington Acres?
John Mitchell contacted me and said he had spoken with John Ajak. Am I pronouncing that correctly? And he's supposed to be getting Todd some information today. Do you have it? Okay.
Okay, so this will be on the agenda for the next.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who is that? John Zajac?
The attorney for Lopes, Wellington Acres,
Okay.
Okay, it's, okay, we're all set there. So this will be on the agenda for next month, as will 2371, if we hear from DEP, or if Concom hears from them in the meantime, but
Okay.
we'll just each month say, do we have anything? We'll know whether I to bring it up. It's almost 1:30, so who's going to make the presentation for Longdale Homes, Hunter's Hill?
Doesn't appear that the engineer or the applicant is here at the moment. You go check the parking lot.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. I think we
They're in the park.
can, how do we shut it? How do we shut the ear?
No, it's just 30 seconds you got.
Oh, it's up on the wall by the fence. It's not good.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Normally we would aim it at the camera, but I don't know if the camera's gonna be able to show it at this distance. Like say you can barely like see my hand, so. Aim it towards the crowd.
This back,
I don't want
We
to
call it a podium.
when I'm off, right?
who's he left this, and then move that back.
You don't?
Right in the line.
Okay, it's 1:30. I request a vote to open the public hearing, the continued public hearing for Warren-built homes. Is there a motion to open the hearing? We have a motion to open the hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Billy? Mello? Barry?
Aye.
Figurito, aye. You're on.
One piece of paper I need in my car.
Uh-oh.
30 seconds.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Evan Watson with W Engineering representing the applicant. Thanks for your patience. I'm out of breath because. So here we have a revised set of plans dated September 19th. We've updated and revised the plans. We've updated and revised the stormwater report. And it's been reviewed by Green Environmental. Green International rather, by Mr. Shaheen. And so the very important piece of paper I needed on my car was his letter that says he's reviewed the project and we've met all of his requirements.
Hey, Evan, before you continue,
Yes,
are these plans the latest that every board and commission in this town should have?
yes, so,
Planning and conservation and everybody else had this exact plan.
yes. So, plan is, we didn't get a chance to attend the last conservation hearing, but this plan is in front of the Conservation Commission's review engineer. So he has that same set of plans. And then we're going to the planning board tonight with this set of plans.
Concom tomorrow night?
It was last week.
Require, revised additional information to come before us 2 weeks prior to the meeting so that we can have time to look at it. That's why I asked him to hold off till the next meeting.
Okay,
So I've been in conversations with Steve Ventresca, review engineer. And part of the reason why I came in at the very last minute on two wheels is because he said that they were done with their review and I could expect a letter by 1 p.m. And so I left at 1:15 p.m. and I still didn't have the letter. However, they did complete their review and I'm expecting to see a letter with minimal, if any, comments from them.
now, who do they represent?
The Conservation Commission.
Who is the Concom using for review?
Niche, however, last time I spoke with Niche, they were supposed to get me an estimate for the additional work. They never did, so we never approved the additional work.
I think he said he was all set. So I know he did the additional work. So he looked at it and said, no, I think we're good to go we're under budget. Because I talked to him and I said, hey, if there's additional money you need, let them know right away and I'll facilitate. We'll get the check over to you right away. Said, no, we're fine with what we have. So
He didn't respond to me.
Okay,
Okay,
Thanks.
all right.
so yeah, I was in correspondence with Ron, which is the senior project engineer who the letter, and he said that Steve just had to do the final review, and Steve's the one that actually issues the letter. So I expect that to come anytime. So so in my hand, again, while I ran out to the car, is the letter from Mr. Shaheen that reviewed these plans and stormwater report, which I have a paper copy of both the plans and the stormwater report I could submit. I also brought some 11x17s if anybody wants to look at them now. But I don't expect there to be really any changes to this set of plans beyond tonight. We're going to the planning board tonight. And given that their consultant has issued a clean bill of health, and we've answered any questions that the planning board's input or any of their abutters have had, I expect that they would close the hearing for their portion of the project.
So what's the status with Concom on this project?
I haven't reviewed the review letter yet.
Okay,
We're waiting for that to come in.
okay. So what did you have there that you was stormwater related specifically?
So we have this set of design plans. I have the stormwater report. And again, the only thing that he asked us to change in the stormwater report, he asked us to include the 25-year storm, which we did. He asked us to rerun the piping from the 10-year storm to the 25-year storm, which we did. I think the original design was based off of the 10-year. But even so, we ran it for 25 and made everything work that way. He asked us to include a couple items in the O&M to add the overflow spillways and the detention, the 4-bay spillways to the O&M plan, which we did. So those were the tweaks that he asked us to do. Other than that, as far as I understand, we meet the stormwater standards from the state. Todd was actually very accommodating. He came out with us a few weeks ago. We did a few groundwater test pits within the detention basin areas. And we did confirm that we have pretty tight soils there on the site. It's, you can see it all the way around the site. Water table is at about 2 feet where we're proposing the wet basins. So I think that, Todd can tell you a little more if he wants to, but that was good for the type of detention basin design that we're going for.
Mr. Pilling?
Yeah, I was out there and I can confirm the water table is very high, the soils are very tight. First water is what most people place with till, those type of terms. I guess the only real issue I have is the fact that these are wet basins that are considerably. It's not usually the thing like to have wet basins and have deep basins. But I have not reviewed this final set of plans that has come in yet. So I haven't seen what modifications he made based on those estimates, but I know, like say, they are wet basins.
What are we talking about for depth after a storm and it drains the way it's supposed to drain? What's left?
5 feet below the outlet. And then and it all complies with I'm sorry.
So if the pipe is up here, the outlet pipe.
Yep.
There's no water from here for 5 feet
Nope, there is 5 feet of water.
up to that
There's
pipe.
always standing water 5 feet deep.
That's right. So that's similar. When we went out for the site walk and we saw the detention basin that was there, we saw a little bit of water in the middle. But that was extraordinary because we were in the middle of the drought. So the water had gone down quite a bit. But on a normal day-to-day, it's at the elevation of the invert. So that matches up with the stormwater handbook for a wet basin. It provides superior water quality for the 80% TSS removal. And what they ask is that a 5 foot deep permanent pool is there. But what we did for safety is we have slopes at 3 to 1 around the outside. But when we get to the water, we go to 5 to 1. So before you got to 1 foot deep of water, you would have to walk out 5 feet. 2 feet of water would be 10 feet. And the 5 feet of water wouldn't be until 25 feet into the water. So nobody can actually fall into the water.
Just rough dimensions. What's the size of this? Is it an oval? Or can you tell me it's like,
Like a bean shape. Yeah, it's the detention basin shape, you know, it's.
well, the problem with that is we prefer infiltration basins. So when you tell me it's gonna hold water, I need more than just it's gonna hold water. Because I've seen the kind that I call pits.
So is wet basins, is that like a planning board waiver or something like that?
We have that waiver. That was with the, oh, I'm sorry. You're talking to me, I'm sorry.
Some homes.
We have a waiver from the planning board, part of the approval for these detention basins. And keep in mind also that these basins were the original design that was approved before. And what we're actually asking to have modified is just to move it outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So this one is a triangular shape. So there'll be a 4-bay and then.
Is that a new one or is that one when we were out there, we saw?
This is a proposed basin.
Okay.
The existing basin, I can try on the cover sheet, was here at the end of this cul-de-sac.
Okay.
And the new basin, there'll be one here and then one on the back. And then I can show you the larger basin. Again, this is the same basin that was previously approved. It's kind of this bone shaped here, so there's a good 4-bay. Then what we do is we do a constructed wetland zone. And then we have the deep water basin and then the outlet. And that's behind all of the lots out in the woods. DPW did ask us to add a fence, so we put a post rail fence around it.
A post and rail fence as opposed to a chain link to keep whatever out?
Yeah, the idea was that if you look at the previous basin that there was no fence there.
Mhm.
And people actually go for a walk around it and they can see the turtles and you could go fishing there or whatnot. So we didn't necessarily want to prevent somebody from getting in there or encourage somebody to climb the fence and jump in there, but rather to let them know this is the basin area. So we're working with them on that.
You?
No, in the minutes, it's Jim,
DPW.
I'm sorry, not DP,
Jim Agia.
yes, building inspector. Thank you.
So what's the rough dimensions of that? I mean, I realize if that were an oblong, just say it's so many feet by so many feet, a guess.
It's large. It takes a large area, so. 200 by 200 in here.
Okay. So since there's going to be water in it all the time, is there an exchange of water from the ground?
Yeah, so it is in the water table. And what will happen is the water table will be in the water table here and will be above the water table here. So the water table will come and store in here. And then what will happen is when it rains, we have a storm. There's permanent pool in the 4-bay. So new storm water will come here. Also anything that's in there will settle out. The water will come through the constructed wetlands where the plants can bring up any of the nutrients and things. And then it will exchange through here. So there'll be both groundwater coming into the basin and water that goes into the basin that actually goes into the groundwater as well.
Mhm.
We can't necessarily take credit for it because it's not an infiltration BMP. But if you looked at the other basin in times of drought, that water is there and actually did infiltrate into the ground.
So with that exchange, it's sufficient to prevent mosquitoes and all that other good stuff that you're talking about on another situation?
Yeah, so where we have, like you said, a pit in the ground. Oh, yes, very good. We have a pit in the ground and there's little bits, pools of water here and there. The only animal that can live there is a mosquito. You get a lot of mosquitoes. So we've done a lot of basins similar to this. And what happens is in the 4-bay and in these shallow things, you get a lot of frogs and tadpoles and fish and things, and those will eat the mosquitoes. So if you can provide a good mixed like wildlife, a habitat for other wildlife, you'll see the mosquitoes will stay down. Or it won't be any different than anywhere else.
Okay. Any members have comments, questions?
Just, where are we with the fence now? You're waiting for who?
Well, we had talked to Yagi in the field. And he mentioned that there may be a requirement in building code that requires schools of water that we have a fence.
I believe it's a bylaw.
General bylaw.
So he said that he may give consideration to this post and rail fence versus a chain link fence, given that it's behind, they're not right up against houses, they're relatively far away in the open space. But we could talk to the planning board about that for sure.
I guess my concern about the fence is I realize that there aren't kids per se in the neighborhood. However, there could be children visiting. Anything but a chain link fence around a pond, because that's what it is, that retains water permanently. Quite frankly, it's not like, this is out back, so it's not going to detract from the attractiveness of any of the homes or anything else. It's going to be out there, and with a chain link fence, there still can provide walking around it that people who live there that want to enter through a gate, walk around, whatever. But the fact that it's not in my opinion, secure fence, it's of concern to me. Anybody else have comments?
I do.
Yes,
Is
Mr.
that
Green.
something that pertains to the planning board or to the stormwater?
The fence? The fence? The fence is a general bylaw.
General bylaw. We approve the plans, right, on the planning board? That should be included into that, am I?
Yes, so I believe the planning board would do anything under the planning board rules and regulations and anything under the definitive plan, and then anything under the general bylaw or zoning would go to the building inspector.
If I can read the general bylaw, it's Article 17, artificial pools. No person in possession of real estate shall have an artificial pool having a depth of 24 inches or more at any point, unless the same shall be enclosed by a protective fence at least 4 feet high, whose design materials and construction shall have been approved by the building inspector, or by such other artificial and natural barriers as thou shalt have been so approved. It goes on about the gates and fences and that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of any stormwater basin that we have required to be fenced. The other thing, anything other than chain link.
Yes, I believe chain link is what is generally requested by the building.
I'm appalled at a rail fence. And I'm not being critical of Mr. Aguirre. I'm just appalled that it's even being brought up. My personal opinion is chain link. And I'm trying to think, where was there a discussion about a fence? And 4 feet after we talked about it, the builder, the proponent, said they would go to a 6-foot fence. I remember this coming up somewhere a while ago, but the main concern is, I can certainly understand the people who live there, the adults that want to go for a walk and check out whatever's living out there, the turtles, the tadpoles, the critters, whatever. But I have a real problem with a rail fence since stormwater has not allowed that anywhere. And we've even had, was it Brook Street where we required a 6, or is it a 4 on top of the basin?
Brook Street is inside their perimeter fence, so that's why that would have been different.
But initially, there was discussion about that. Maybe it was, I'm thinking of the perimeter fence there. I think this fence thing needs to be looked into further because I am not comfortable with that at all.
To answer your question, this would fall under the jurisdiction of the planning board. stormwater building inspector, possibly even highway, because obviously this is a maintenance thing and also security thing. Fire chief could weigh in on it also.
But if it's gonna be an issue, we can certainly put a chain link fence. It's fine. It wouldn't be an issue.
Well, as I say, it's not like it's going to be in a place that is going to detract from property values or who wants to look at that old ugly chain link fence. It's really a safety measure and a rail fence just doesn't do it. To me, that's a decorative fence. It just doesn't provide the protection that would be needed. Anyone else have comments here from the board? Hearing none. Hearing none. I'll open it up, public input. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, come to the podium, which is right over here. Or name, address, and then you can speak, okay? Yes.
The first thing is, I don't know what,
Address.
oh, I'm sorry, Sandy Sudo, 3073 Hunters Hill Drive.
Did you get that, Mrs. Grassi?
Thank you.
And SOUTL?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So where is this new drain area going to be? Because I'm on the corner of Hunters Hill and Clubhouse, right around the corner, way in the back. There's a huge one back there with great big, things that come in and out, very big, no fence. With this summer, I don't think there was much water in there at all, actually. But I would like to know, where is this new one being placed in relation to where I'm living? And
That back a little more so that.
I can show you like this. So. So on the overall street, so in a moment. If you're on the corner of Hunters Hill and Clubhouse here,
correct,
and so here are these two basins.
yeah,
If you can show everybody else.
Move them
that would be nice.
the easel back, then she can see it and everyone else can see it too. Please.
No problem. Yep.
So you are here, here are these two basins. So we're going to extend, with the, just have the lawn clipping area and things over here. We're gonna extend the road through this and
Yeah,
Miranda Way will extend through.
yeah,
So we have one here and one here. So this one might be considered a mile away. It's pretty
yeah,
far
yeah,
away.
yeah.
And this one is, so you won't see these from here.
And our drainage goes through to those, is that
Your
what happens?
drainage
Yeah.
goes to these.
Continues to go to
Yep.
those.
And so everything on this road to about here continues to go through.
Mhm, mhm.
This basin will pick up this new road of Miranda Way.
Yeah,
And this basin is large because it takes the rest of Miranda Way, the rest of Clubhouse and all of this loop into there.
okay,
So that's why these two are large because it more or less.
yeah. Yeah, so the two existing are not fenced in. There are very few young children in the neighborhood, as you could well. But I do recall there was a youngster living on Hunters Hill. And his friends would come in on their bikes and they were all over the place. And once in a while, my grandson went biking with them and I tend to sort of chase them. I wanted to be sure they were not near that drainage because that made me quite nervous that it was not fenced in. I'm all for a fence. Is a 4-foot fence good enough? I think so. I don't know how anybody else feels, but and we can't see them, right? We can't see any of these from our homes.
None of the new ones. I don't know if you can see these. There may be some people that can see them from
You
the.
might see them from the backyard.
Yeah, I can't see any of that. But and maybe as you develop around that corner,
This
some people
one is
may.
in far in the open space.
Yeah.
So there'll be woods between here and there. And then this one, again, if they end up kind of opening up their backyard, they might see it, but the intent is to have some
Yeah.
trees across there.
So your intent is to put a 4-foot fence?
Yes, that's the bylaw. So we would do that.
And
But
your
then again-
question is that enough?
It needs discussion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Say.
I would say that since it is a private
Yeah.
organization and that
you know, obviously there is an existing community here that has some input. If you guys had a meeting and wanted a 15-foot high fence, so we're putting in fences, and you guys, wanted to add on to what we're doing, if we bring a fence, we might be, we could have that discussion. So,
Yeah, that's good to know. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. So was it those two new basins that we were talking about, the rail fence?
I was saying rail fence on any of the basins, but we can.
Were you planning to put rail fence on the existing basins?
Yeah, we would. After the discussion we had in the field, we would put rail fence, but now we can do chain link.
From Hunters Hill?
If I can, for a second.
Yes.
I pulled up the planning board regulations. I haven't read these before, so I'm just reading them now. Section 4320 about the use of open or above ground stormwater detention, retention, or infiltration facilities is prohibited unless the variance is granted by the Dayton Board of Health. Then, should the variance be granted, then any basin needs to conform with, there's a whole bunch of regulations after that. One of them is that all aspects of the detention basin shall be designed with safety in mind. Fenced or landscaping shall not inhibit emergency access. Basin shall be no more than 3 feet deep. And the side slopes have to be a 5:1 on the outside of the basin. And there's other stuff there, but so these are planning board regs, not board of health regs. I was not aware that the board of health has to grant.
My concern is that we are spending a lot of time on this right now. Are they gonna are we gonna be spending the same amount of time when they come before us? And those are the things that I just want to try. One board should do one thing, one board should.
Yeah, we have addressed that because that was in the previous approval, and those regulations were there. Yeah.
Back in what, 2004?
Yeah, that's right.
So but the board of health didn't exist as a separate entity then. So I'm not aware of whatever happened then. So this may have already been resolved, but it's in there that fences are to be designed with safety in mind. So that would imply a chain link fence.
Okay.
All right,
And they're willing to do it, so.
okay. So when you go back to the, I'm just curious, you go back to the planning board, what is it now that they have to review again?
So they've reviewed the plans and they were happy. They liked the design with the modification of the previous design. And we've reduced this roadway width. We've added this new road. And then they were essentially waiting for the return of their consultant's review, which we have. So that's what they were looking to go over is
And Concom is waiting for an opportunity to review the information also, right? You're waiting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously, I think this is going to get continued, I would think, because we need to know what planning's feelings are and what Concom's are. I think that the fence issue is going to stay on the agenda for the stormwater committee as if we can, meaning we'll check into it, but certainly it's pretty clear what this town is looking for as far as protection.
I don't have a problem, especially after they said that they are willing to do it. So
Yeah.
I think it should be.
Right. Are there any other questions, comments, or anything else about Hunters Hill? Yes.
I also want to say we did get there's a swale that's behind lots 124, 25, 26, 28, and connect to the catch basin. And the statement is that it doesn't seem to be draining the water to the catch basin as well as it should be. I feel like when I was there, I feel like it's covered and there's a small pipe through it for a certain section, like they were driving through it through the vacant lot. And I'm wondering if that's restricted. Well, and if that's supposed to be removed at this point in time, or if that area is being addressed at all.
So there's two things that address that comment. One is reason why this is all being exceeded is there was a roadway that was designed across here that was to pick up that drainage and bring it into the system. With it not being there, all that water flows into that swale, which is there. So to counteract that, we've added this swale to pick up that drainage in absence of the roadway. And then in the original design plans of this section, which we're not modifying, there is a swale that comes in between here and it was built relatively poorly.
So it's our intent to put that the way it was shown on the plan. So, yeah, but we recognize that is an issue out there, so looking to
So
clean
that
that
was
up.
somebody that come into our office. And
Okay, Mrs. Grassi, you had a communication from someone who owns land there. Could you just read that for the benefit of the person who made the comment and also for everyone present?
Well, this is Tremont Johnson. She owns lot 88. She called office and she just wanted, she couldn't get here today. She only got the notification yesterday. And she just wanted to, make sure that her concerns regarding their lot being negatively impacted were read into the record.
I believe that was pretty much addressed by the first one. The same type of issues were, I think.
Her issue, we discussed it ad nauseum at the planning board.
Very much more serious.
Well, yes, so there was, her lot was not shown as, it was shown as being part of the project that was owned by the applicant. And so we've revised the plan to correct that so that her lot is still shown in its entirety the way it was. And actually brought, this was, it was this lot here. This is how it was before, and then we revised it so that it's exactly the same now. So that was her concern.
Okay. Just for the benefit of the residents of Hunters Hill, what was just described and what we're talking about is only stormwater. You obviously have you're gonna have, that new part has a whole new, I'll call it septic system, treatment, whatever. Everything we're talking about is only related to stormwater. They're not connected, they're separate systems, okay? Mr. Pilling, did you have something?
No.
Anybody else? Hearing none,
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, I know there's the vernal pools in there. And LEC was gonna take a look at them in the fall. So do you know where they're at with that or?
I don't.
Okay, because that's something we're gonna ask at Concom. I mean, I know we said it required further investigation. But as far as the potential vernal pool that's adjacent to 126, 127 and that.
Yep.
Yeah,
We said that's a vernal pool.
okay.
We basically gave up and said, well, we need to
Can't
give up.
see
But
that far either.
no, that's fine. So the two, we had 1, 2, 3 potential vernal pools instead of, and then there was one over here that is dried up. This is a little man-made nothing here. So we just conceded and said, instead of waiting for the fall, et cetera, we'll just concede and say that they are vernal pools and we'll give them the 200-foot protection minus this swale that we need to put in here and any rehab that we do there. So that's where we're at for that.
Possibly have them certify them. That'd be great.
Well, we can give this, we'll give you the 200-foot protection. We need to do extra work for that, but.
anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to continue. Motions are a second. We have a motion and a second to continue this. Our next meeting is October the 19th. Go with 1:30 again.
You want that to be part of the motion?
Yes, that it'll be continued to the 19th. 1:30 p.m.
So, I mean, then
Is there a second? That's a friendly one. I don't need that one seconded.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, conservation meets on the 20th, just to let you know.
Okay, and I know you had to meet, I'll call it early this month because of the way the calendar opened, which put you ahead of us this time. I'm thinking whatever happens at the Stormwater Committee meeting can be tentative, waiting to hear from Concom. Okay, and if we're going to if we make decisions on anything, they'll be tentative if they affect something Concom's doing.
Okay.
Or for that matter, if something happens to come before planning that we should talk about so that we're all on the same page. Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Mr. Pilling?
Aye.
Snello?
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Spirito. Spilot, aye. Thank you for coming in.
Welcome. You want paper copy of the report?
The next item is agenda item 4D. Review, discuss act 620 Oasis LLC.
Jim and Todd's happy with their revision. Remember? And yeah, but they never made it. They don't agree. I was gonna see you just like it, but
Doesn't work with. Like, oh no.
Sorry.
everything else is. Kevin? Where are you? Haven't been.
Go ahead.
All right. So I like to, oh, the disc, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, when we're on Zoom.
Yep. Great, so for the record, Nick Fasendola, Level Design Group. Yep.
Excuse me. Please, we're trying to conduct a meeting. Go ahead, Nick, try it again.
Problem. So for the record, Nick Fasendola, Level Design Group, here on behalf of the property owner and applicant of 620 Spring Street. Our request today is not a typical request. We're looking to finalize some outstanding issues kind of hanging out there over the past few months, preventing the stormwater management permit from being closed out. A few months back, the Stormwater Committee essentially reviewed the final plan and approved the design for stormwater management improvements at the existing site, which is a redevelopment project. Additional to satisfying final comments from the stormwater agent. We seem to be at an impasse with a couple of these comments, so that's why we'd like to discuss these items with the Stormwater Committee today. Hopefully come to a resolution and get this permit issued so the applicant can obtain their building permit and start the site improvements and building improvements as part of this project.
Okay, there was an email from a long email with a report attached from Nick, and it was September the 9th. This was sent out to the committee. Get this and have a chance to review it. Okay, so Nick, if you want to start with the first highlighted area.
Not a problem. So just, I mean, we'll need some input from Todd on this too, but the way we understand it is there's essentially two outstanding issues that are hanging out there. One is a classification issue, whether, and that's what the letter is kind of circling around is, is the site considered a LUPL under the Stormwater Management Policy handbook? That's a land use subject to higher pollutant loads. With that designation, there's a requirement for additional pre-treatment for infiltrative practices and other small things that go along with the design nation. Our position is that the property does not satisfy those requirements, and I provided a detailed description of why in my provided letter. The other only outstanding item, which we believe to be outstanding, is that there's an existing drain interior to the building that feeds into the sluiceway for two existing catch basins. We're upgrading those catch basins with stormwater treatment units, and we're recommending that the interior lines into the building be inspected and cleaned during construction. I believe Todd wanted to see that work done prior to the permit being issued. Some logistical problems with that. They still have a lot of equipment in the building. And they have to mobilize and move out a lot of that equipment. So they're looking to do that work in conjunction with the interior building work. So it's not that we don't want to clean the lines, we don't want to inspect the lines and fix them if there's something wrong. It's more or less, when is it appropriate to do that work? So we are not opposed to doing that work, and there being a condition in the final permit that says the report or other documentation of the status of those existing interior building drain lines, which feed to the sluiceway, and then eventually discharge down that way, be cleaned. It's just that we want to be able to do that work at an appropriate time when all the interior renovations are being done, the building's been cleared out, and, you know, the contractor's fully mobilized to be able to do that work.
As I recall, the inspection of the drain lines, it was Mr. Aguirre, the building commissioner, who asked that they be scoped because he was not comfortable moving ahead until he knew the condition of those. It was specifically Mr. Aguirre. Now, obviously, when we were out in the parking lot that day, those two drain holes that we saw, that was discussed. But I know that was, you're telling me nobody has scoped those lines?
That's correct. And it's my understanding that Mr. Aguirre doesn't have a problem with it being done during, you know, at the time that the interior building work is being done, as long as that work is done. Unfortunately, he's not here today to speak to that fact, but
This goes back to the site visit, I want to say February.
February, March, I would say.
We had two of them.
Time.
Initially, Todd and I were out there. And then we had one when the Stormwater Committee was present.
You know, in addition to that, our position is also, you know, these drain lines take water today. These are active drain lines. They have active connections to these existing catch basins. So the water is draining, you know, we don't see it being a major issue. So if there was a lot of standing water that was occurring in that area and there was something obvious that said, okay, that drain line's not working, we'd understand, let's get that scoped out ahead of time. But like I said, the applicant is seeking to be able to do that work ahead of time.
So you're replacing the two basins, new plumbing to the sluiceway. But I think there's two pipes coming from the building going to those basins. I think that's what he's talking about scoping. Because other than that, we can't scope the sluiceway because of the size of it. A camera will not follow it.
Correct. There's lines that essentially come in from this basin and it kind of comes down, hits a 90 interior manhole and connects to here. Same thing with this. It's based on our record building plans from what we can determine. Is a line that comes here and then also ties into that sluiceway. So these are being upgraded with stormwater treatment units to provide additional treatment at the point source. So the pipe going to that, we're just going to pull out the existing catch basin structure and then replace it with that stormwater treatment unit, match the invert, and keep everything essentially the same.
That is ultimately what the only problem I had is the invert, the new thing you're dropping, the invert is 2.5 feet lower than the existing pipe, and the existing pipe's underwater. So I was concerned that the elevation of that new pipe that would be 2.5 feet lower would be lower than the bottom of the channel that you discharge it to. And that's why I asked the elevation of the bottom of the channel to make sure that you weren't below the channel.
Okay.
And then his response was that it might only be 28 inches, not 42 inches, but that's still over a foot lower than the existing invert now. And if the pipe's always got water, and I'm just afraid it's gonna be below the bottom of the channel. So then you're gonna be going uphill with your water. That's why I was concerned. It had nothing to do with cleaning it out. It had nothing to do with putting in the structures made it better. It was just that you're 2.5 feet lower. Because the invert right now is only 15 inches down from the rim. So that's what's at about 17.5 and you're dropping it to 15.30.
With that there, okay.
And again, right now, that entire 12-inch pipe is generally submerged all the time. Yes, it handles water and it flows, but it might be even with the water in the channel. If we drop it 3 feet, it may
not work.
It may not work.
Understandable.
That was my concern.
Okay. There may have been a little miscommunication there. I apologize for that. We'll look into the elevations there. And I mean, if we can get everything to match and work with the, stormwater quality unit provider, I mean, it is tough that with minimal cover there to get the structure in and have everything work properly.
And he said that they were gonna possibly be able to get it to 28.5 inches below the rim.
Mhm.
I believe. But again, that's still over a foot lower than the one that's there
And
now.
what's there now, okay.
And my comment was that it would, if it's always submerged, it's gonna work, but it's also if it's below the channel.
Correct,
And,
yeah.
and they're meant to be full all the time, and that's all the swirl and all that, so I'm not arguing about the water.
Mhm,
I said it was under below the swell.
Okay,
The channel, I guess. So that was the concern. So I wanted to know the infiltration of this bottom of the swale now, sorry. It's not a swale, it's a, they call it
the
drain.
sluice way.
Sluice way.
Yep.
Because if we give them approval and they start and they go, oh, we're 2 feet below it, then we gotta redesign the whole
Okay.
thing. Cleaning it out is not the concern now. That Jim was okay with it being done at the time of construction, because that's when they'll have the equipment, they'll be able to rip that whole basin out and then we can pipe through it much easier.
Yep.
So my question is, I understand that the work that would have been done or has to be done inside the plant is one issue. Why haven't the drain pipes have been scoped from the holes in the parking lot, at least into the building?
Well, I would assume they just want to do it all at once instead of just doing a little bit and then coming back later, because I don't know what there is for access ports inside the building. If he says it's 90-degree bends, you wouldn't make it very far.
Yeah, we believe there are some access areas, but there might be some machinery covering the top of those ports at this time.
So are you going to use existing pipes, but you're going to change what's the manhole is out, the two out in the?
Correct. The idea was to keep the existing pipe and put in a different structure, one that cleans the water versus just collects it. Right now, it's just a standard, a catch basin with the grate, water goes into it. We want to put something in there to improve,
Dramatically.
for sediment removal and things of that nature and take care of that.
So have you talked to Mr. Aguirre about this?
Well, only the day of the sidewalk. I haven't talked to Bill, because I didn't, for me, it wasn't about cleaning, it was only about the
Okay.
foundation. This is the first I'm hearing about the cleaning.
Yeah.
Okay. But also, you weren't out there the other site visits.
I was not, no, somebody else from my office was.
Okay.
So I'm piecing this all together. I apologize that I wasn't part of the initial
Well, and I
conversation.
want to apologize too, because some of this, I haven't had any time to deal with this. There's been several of these stormwater issues that I just can't get to, because we seem to have more and more fires lighting as fast as I can put them out. So I haven't responded to them either, but this, yes.
Mr. Ferry, you have any questions about the drainage that we're talking about, and whether it's scoped before or after?
No, we just, I understand the logistical problems of process of moving and whatnot. But I believe those two structures you're replacing have a pipe coming from the building into those basins.
It's correct.
Those probably should be scoped, because you want to avoid chasing illicit water in the future, because that's what it could be.
I mean, they seem to be solid holding water, as Todd said, there is some standing water.
Right.
In the pipe, so I don't think there's a poor connection, or they're deteriorated enough to be infiltrating into the ground at that point. But yeah, I mean, we would, obviously, old construction like this, when we do pull that out, that pipe may need to be lined, it may need to be improved. The only way we're gonna find out is when we get out there and dig into it and really see what's there.
A lot of them, I have a feeling it's just roof water going through the building and going into the system.
Yeah, it probably is, given the type of building that this is. So as far as outstanding issues, it would just be, let's do our best, get an elevation on the sluice way, and then see what we can to do to match those existing inverts. We may have to swap out and go to a different unit, maybe like a storm scepter. I think we can get a little bit more clearance versus we were proposing, it's called a CDS unit, has a swirl type separator
But it's a much lower pipe going out.
Correct, yeah. With the storm scepter, it's almost like two chambers, and we'd be able to maybe work something to a different configuration to make that better. But if that's the only outstanding issue and Todd would be happy, then, we'll.
Well, that was one of them. The other one about the bubble, land use of higher pollution load. DEP isn't clear in the things that the whole site are just want to see. You take like a top plaza of a Target and pull the market basket in, and if you're just gonna repay part of the parking lot, well, we're less than 1,000, so we're okay. I think DEP looks at the whole site. However, everything they have here meets the regulations for level. So I thought the response was going to be, we haven't made a determination whether or not the site's level, but all our drainage conforms to level requirements. And that's where I thought it was going to end. Not a long discussion about whether it was a level or whether it wasn't, because you have everything in place for a level. Because it's a redevelopment project, so you meet all the requirements. So that's where I thought this was going to go.
Sure.
Not into an argument.
No, I mean,
The site conform, and then you're silent on the determination on the site being level,
Yeah.
but yet you still conform.
so like I said, we can agree to disagree on if it's classified as a level. I mean, I
Yeah, I'm
provided some,
not saying that it is or isn't.
Yes.
I'm just saying that you meet level requirements. Anyway.
correct. And like the end game with that is because it's redevelopment, then whatever's here complies with
But
stormwater.
you still have to meet certain requirements and regulations, and they meet all those.
Yeah. So with regards to that, so
So one more time, for those of us that don't remember, what's a level?
Land use of higher pollutant loads.
Right.
And DEP defines it, in addition to fleet storage and that kind of stuff, that if there's over 1,000 vehicle trips per day from the site.
Okay, so as I read through this, there may not be 1,000 trips a day currently. But when you look at a redevelopment project, are you looking at the entire site from one end to the other? So that, let's assume that they have their operation going, their grow facility, and they actually rent the rest of the building to, I don't know,
Whoever,
and then
1,000 trips a day.
then gazillion trucks and all that good stuff. So is what we're looking at all inclusive? Or are we only looking at part of it?
Well, that's the bridge here. I'm saying, I think you need to look at the whole thing. He's saying we don't, I'm not in his company, but. And I'm saying it doesn't really matter because he meets the level requirements, and that's what I thought the response was going to be, not a discussion on whether it is or isn't. We don't need to decide whether it is or it isn't lawful today. We just need to know that whatever drainage he's got would meet the requirements of the lawful if the site was determined to be a lawful, and he doesn't.
And if every square inch up there was used by whoever,
It's 9 million cubic feet of area.
another Raytheon comes in, that chance. But a large manufacturing company that employs a lot of people on 3 shifts a day. Because as I read through it, that was my one thought is, wait a minute, I know that the grow facility isn't going to have that, but, and I realized part of the plant's gone, the western end was taken down. But I looked, my question really was the entire site, just the part we walked around, which is down in Warner Boulevard and River. The other, just again, for my edification, the sluiceway and the drainage from the parking lot does not go into the river. It goes into a basin and is disposed of that way.
no, what enters the sluiceway does discharge.
Does discharge it from our river, yes,
Correct, yes,
on the east side of Warner Boulevard.
correct. In the back of the property where we're doing this parking lot improvement, we have some bioretention basins. The water goes in, it gets treated, and then it overflows and goes over. So this is like this area all drains to the back here, and this area drains down here. So it's kind of 2 separate areas.
Okay, so when we were walking down the driveway, walking towards Warner Boulevard, going east, we talked about that area that's right inside there on the right-hand side. That little brick building was that we thought was a fire something or other. There was also a disposal area, wasn't it, for water?
Proposed or existing? Because that was where the sluiceway is, it's open, it's behind that brick building. But they were proposing another basin right up by the street.
Correct, a little small little basin.
That's the other one then.
That's gonna collect, just collect and treat.
And that one does not go into the river.
No, that one eventually overflows and
It's a-
goes into the drainage system. Yeah, if it overflows, correct.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that what we were talking about was still what we saw.
So that was my third issue. There were three, is this basin, the groundwater mounding that's gonna form under based on the water going to it. It's gonna come up 8 inches into the basin, which I argued it's gonna impede its ability to infiltrate as designed. The response was that the water doesn't go down in the ground, it only goes up the sides. So the groundwater mound is irrelevant to the calculations.
Say that again. What do you mean it doesn't go into the ground?
It doesn't go down, it only goes sideways.
It goes both ways. It also goes,
So if it goes sideways, it's still got to drain somewhere.
No, I understand that. The groundwater mound is, if you just keep pouring water in one spot, it'll start mounding like a cone under the ground, under the basin. Well, in this case, it comes up 8 inches into the basin.
Okay,
So what I'm saying is if it's 8 inches into the basin, then the water can't go out the bottom of the basin if it's touching groundwater. And so I wanted them to revise the calcs to raise it up that 8 inches and say, all right, we'll assume it, because it's still infiltrating from 8 inches up, down. And I wanted to adjust it, and the response was the water's not going up the bottom, it's going up the sides. So we don't need to adjust our calcs.
correct. That was the response provided. And the other thing is to keep in mind is, under the redevelopment standards, there's really no work being done here. I mean, this is all existing flow, so we're putting that in to treat it as best we can. We're governed by existing elevations, right? The edge of pavement right here where we're coming in is 22.1 and the groundwater is only a couple feet deep, so we don't have enough elevation to really raise it and keep it outside of that water table. And there's no other, so what we're saying, the long and short of it is it will go out the sides. We don't have any concerns or issues with it functioning hydraulically. But, at this point, it's going to provide some improved level of treatment for your standard storm events where you get an inch of rain or half-inch of rain, whatever goes into there. The mound should be minimal and it will treat the water and improve that existing condition under the redevelopment standards. Because, there's no really, this wasn't originally proposed. This was put in at a request to kind of add some additional treatment to this area. The main scope of the project is this work back here. All these other items, these basins that we're improving, where there's other questions here, those are all above and beyond what the main scope is of the new parking or the redeveloped parking lot area to improve what's there. So these are improving the water quality treatment of what's there. This is here to improve to the best that we can. It is a tight site. There is high groundwater there. There's not even room to really put a catch basin in it or anything.
Now, if the response to my comment has been that this is the best we can do and it's redevelopment and all that, it would have been fine, but the response was, no, the water's not going up the bottom, it's going up the sides.
And I apologize for that.
So
That's why I'm taking care of
that's why
this.
I read it in past, because it was the responses weren't lining up with the question necessarily. So I'm glad Nick's here and we can, but again, if the response was that, then it's okay.
And
Are you saying the water went under the bridge?
Yes.
Roy, and that employee of ours is no longer with the company. No, it was Sean. He's he's on to VHB, so he's being big time, but that's why I'm here. And I looked at all this and I said, why did you answer it like that? So I apologize.
we met the first time you and I were out there in February when it was so cold.
Was he the younger gentleman or the older guy?
Oh, no, he was the pleasant one.
Is the other guy not pleasant? I apologize for that also.
well, let go.
But I can provide an updated response with the information I presented to the committee
I am
today.
concerned with the elevation of that.
And we will dig into that.
Because, right, I don't need you redesigning once they start construction.
Yeah.
Rather know now that it's going to work.
Okay, yeah, and we'll dig into that.
Are you before any other boards in town?
No, I believe we're pretty much wrapped up. Conservation is still open, but we're not actively
Well,
attending hearings until everything has been completed.
kind of like, so the changes, any modification, where's the 200 foot on there?
Oh, it's way up here. It's bank, 100-year flood. It's somewhere in this area.
It doesn't
Yeah,
show.
it doesn't show on this sheet.
But it's in the middle of the parking
Yeah,
lot.
it's in the middle.
Okay,
So the stuff we're talking about, this basin here and these structures here are outside of the commission's jurisdiction, other than water from these two structures technically eventually drains to the river through the sluice way about,
And
1,000
ultimately, if he
feet.
changed it from a C, what you call those, the
CDS to a storm scepter,
Doesn't change.
Okay.
Company name and makes it involved.
we're still proposing to provide improvement to what's there. And I think that's
Right.
the underlining item that we want to make sure everybody's aware of. Whatever we're doing is it's in an attempt to improve these existing conditions to a historic mill site, which has been operating like this for.
Are you all set with planning? You Remember the gravel?
I'm not.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, but so we closed the hearing and we're going based on the stormwater agent and the building inspector being okay with the plan. So that never happened. It's been well over 21 days.
So do they need to give you some kind of letter authorizing you to go over 21 days to issue?
So, yeah, because they never gave me that.
So they're obligated to issue within 21 days.
No, we understand
You
that.
need
Yeah.
to give them,
Yeah, and then I
backdate it.
need the final plan, and I think the final plan should probably come to the meeting so that we at least have it and yeah. Then I can have them sign new order. So it's basically gonna be the same order with a new date.
Sure. And nothing's changed. I mean, this last plan, I think, is late June. So nothing's changed. If we do modify this, there will be a revision that essentially just would
That's-
change these two
That's
notes.
the one we're gonna wanna see.
But yeah, no, we would definitely, I'll email you on the side, and we can get all that figured out. Sorry about the,
Yeah, it's been sitting in a pile and you know how you get rid of those piles.
oh, we want to gotten rid of two.
Sounds good.
So, Mr. Billing, what do you need so that you can make a recommendation to this committee? I know you've got to review this.
So this committee's already closed the hearing. And it was contingent, the approval was contingent on the final review. So my final review has not been satisfied because I have 3 open comments.
Well, and he said he's going to look at,
No, I understand. So I have 3 open comments. One was the elevation of sluice way.
Mhm.
Number 2 was the ground water mound here. Number 3 was the level.
Level, yeah.
So all he needs to do is give me a response that says, maybe a revised plan for those elevations, depending on what he gets. But just a response that's adequate, and then I can issue the permit.
so what do you recommend we do today?
Nothing. There's nothing to do. They say the hearing's already closed.
All right, but you're waiting for information.
I am, so.
Correct. Yeah, we just wanted
He's
to,
gonna provide that information.
yes, we just wanted to come in and be able to talk to everybody and get an update and just kind of coordinate all
It's
this.
solved between the other, was it Dan and Campbell?
Yeah.
From their site, who took a couple vacations and somebody was whatever in the hospital or something. And I've been busy and I took a couple vacations and it kind of stalled. So he's here to get it moving.
Oh, okay. So you're all set with that gravel parking lot, that got approved by planning?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
I believe there is a special permit for the use of marijuana growing facility and the parking, all that was approved by planning, yes.
does anyone else have any questions, comments, or anything about this? So if not, it's between Mr. Pilling and Mr. Fascindola to get everything wrapped up.
Very good. I appreciate you guys' time, and it's good to just come in and talk about these things in person sometimes.
August next year, I'd like to make a motion, we take item 5C out of order.
Uh-oh.
I was just gonna say, the last time he appeared was on the screen.
Oh, you guys gave it to me that day.
I said it wasn't directed at you.
Oh, I know. Oh, I passed it along too. Trust me.
I know you did. I got a phone call and I said, yeah, that's what happened. Is there a motion? We have a motion to take 5C out of order. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a second, any discussion? All in favor? Spelling?
Aye.
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 Know the neighbor in the audience.
Yes.
That was why I did it. It wasn't the next time. I like that.
Keep you here.
Right.
Okay, so agenda item 5C, it's Brook Street Solar Project, Grasshopper. So what I know about this is the last correspondence resulted in the site visit we had, and then we came back here and had a meeting. I've since gotten an email from Mr. Hafez, only regarding the assessor end of this, in that the Board of Assessors will require an affidavit relative to that property that they want to acquire, the Crawford property, that it will not be developed, that it will remain in 61B. And also the Board of Assessors will place a lien on it once the real estate transaction happens. The lien will come off the property that is Crawford. A lien will be put on that property for the new owners, and there will be an affidavit required. And Mrs. Checker is working on that, the standard language that we would use. That property not being further developed. And the site visit was, when we came back, what we talked about was the amount of square feet of forest that will have to be removed, cut back to make an appropriate fire break. And we also talked about having a, well, it won't be what, like, this won't be like that culvert's down there now, but that ditch in the back of the property, there'll be something put there to allow a fire truck to cross, because there will be in effect a somewhat of a gravel road along the back, so that if a fire truck has to get in there, that gravel will be able to support the weight of, that road will support the weight of a fire truck. And that the property must, the part that's going to be cut has to remain, has to be maintained so that it doesn't grow up into more bushes and stuff. It has to stay open. So, Mr. Pilling. Hang on the basins, because
Well, that's why with Nick here, because that, from what I understand, they're proposing to remove all the bad material and replace it with proper permeable materials, so that it will drain. And I don't know if this person will have anything to add to that.
is it, but it's not your company, is it? I thought they went with Atlantic.
No, I'm still technically the engineer of record, and yeah, I know. And this is the first I'm hearing of the back parcel and all that, so I'm a little taken back by that, but I'm glad there's a resolution in the works for the other issue.
My question is, you were going to get stuff last week. Hasn't arrived.
We haven't got it.
Yes, so
I specifically asked if you were involved. And I was told, no, Nick is not on this project. He's, and I thought the name Atlantic was mentioned. Is that an engineering firm? Okay,
that's who did the original design and permitting back in 2018.
so this goes around and around, and periodically you pop up.
As of late last week, I'm now back on.
So that tells me since the phone call followed up the meeting, when the name Atlantic was mentioned, I guess that didn't work out. That explains why you don't have plans, because they were coming. So also out there when we were on site, yes, the commitment was made that those basins are going to be dug up, that they have a new contractor, because the contractor, the general contractor and the electrical contractor both had their names removed from the permits, because Mr. Aguirre mentioned that. And that the basin work and getting those batteries approved by doing this clear cutting of the land was all going to happen at the same time, because initially I had had a conversation. I've had repeated conversations with Mr. Hafez that get the basins fixed, get online and start generating, deal with the battery separately. I mean, they could have been generating over a year.
No, I understand.
But in any case, whoever makes decisions, the latest decision is that all of this is going to come together and the basin's going to be fixed and operating, and the battery situation is going to get resolved, and And after they cut down the trees and they buy the land and all this other good stuff. And it's gonna go online, and Mr. Aguirre made it very clear to them. If either of those two things don't happen, especially the priority is the basins. It will never go online if those basins don't work. I mean, even if you get the battery issue, buy the land and cut the trees and get the battery issue resolved. The basins don't work, it's not going online.
I understand.
So that's basically what we talked about, because we came back here after the site visit, and these were the commitments. Mr. Hafez was here taking notes about who we had to contact. And again, the last thing I heard from him was an email asking about the affidavit that has to be filed relative to the use of that land to keep it in 61B, which is open and wild space.
And we did also require that once they remove this material, that both the design engineer and myself need to witness the bottom of it to make sure all the material is removed. And then we watch them bring in the good material too at this point. That we both have to sign off on this.
And the other thing was when we were on site. Initially, they were talking about accessing the woods behind the battery storage units. But it was pointed out that's not a good place because they're on fire. You don't want fire trucks right there. So it's down in the corner that when you come up and you start to make the curve to go up behind the batteries, it's that first corner area you come to where that road will cross the ditch to get into the wooded area that's going to be cleared.
Okay.
So that was talked about too.
All right.
So now what do you know?
So, like I said, so since late last week, Grasshopper had reached out because we've had a little impasse between ourselves and them with these outstanding issues. I'd given them a laundry list of things, it's control construction. I need to sign off at the end on that everything's been built according to plan. So I made a list of all the things based on my as-built plan. A lot of it is all stuff that everybody's aware of, the deficiencies with the basins and a few other things. So what I've recently developed a plan set, for the repair work that's required. So we did an as-built a few months back. So I looked at the grading and, some of the site grading wasn't done properly. So the capacity of the basins isn't there. So some of that needs to be corrected. So I did some calculations and verified.
We saw this plan, right?
No, it's a different plan. It's a different plan. So that plan was to kind of go in a different direction. This is a plan to repair, to get everything back to what was initially approved. So so we have the approved plan, and then we have what's there today. And then I just worked on issuing a plan, and their contractors reviewing it. And then after they have reviewed it, I'm going to submit it to Todd. That it essentially details, how to repair the basin, remove the material. Like I said, I want, coordinate inspections with Todd. It's listed right on the plan. The type of sand that I want put into the hole after the material is removed. The grading that needs to be corrected to satisfy the volume requirements, which were approved under the original design plan. All those things, the outlets for the back basin need to be reconstructed. There's supposed to be two pipes back there. There's only one. They're much lower than they need to be. So all that's going to get ripped out and fixed. So there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done, not only to satisfy you guys, but I won't sign off on it either, as far as the control construction affidavit. So I produced that plan. I sent it to Grasshopper actually yesterday. They're reviewing it with their contractor that they're going to be bringing on. We're going to have a meeting on it, make sure everybody understands what the scope is. And then we're going to get it to Todd to review and just make sure he's okay with all the items that we've included in there. But it's essentially, we're not changing anything. It's just what the process from here to get to what it should have been in the beginning.
It's not a repair, it's total reconstruction.
Oh, and in some instances, yeah. And that's why I felt it was necessary not to just give them the approved plan and say, here, make it like this, to give them clear and specific direction with, what's there to minimize the amount of changes that need to be made while still making it a conforming site. I hope if that makes sense.
Do you know if they've already hired a contractor?
I believe they have somebody in the works. Well, the overall project we'll call them the general contractor, Orbital is still involved. So Orbital is going to hire a site contractor to do the work. I don't know who that person is yet. I'm hoping to find.
Still negotiating cost.
Yeah, and the reason I did that plan was so they could also price out that work and kind of, get a contractor on board for a certain contract to do this work. So they satisfy everything, because we don't want someone to come back and be like, oh, well, I didn't know that was part of the plan. I didn't know that had to be done. That's why we're making a plan set that details, make it like this today, and everybody will be happy. So that's the goal.
So what you've done with the plans is not a modification. Is it a clarification?
Correct. It's essentially like a construction clarification on.
Or construction guidance.
Yeah. So we're not changing the design. We're not moving the roadway. We're not changing the type of basin. It's mostly putting on paper what they need to do, because they have to excavate out a lot of material and providing those specifications.
The electrical contractor, because Mr. Aguirre said there'll have to be a new one of those because panels have to be removed.
Panels will have to be removed. I can't speak to the electrical contractor situation. I'm assuming they will get somebody on board.
Next time you talk to Grasshopper, mention to them, we asked about the electrical contractor. We don't assume anything anymore.
No, I understand. But I don't even know where they are. Unfortunately, I'm only given certain
What you need to know.
parts of the story where it doesn't help out in the long run, as you guys are aware. But like I said, I'm not even, this is the first I've heard of purchasing the back land and cutting it and making a driveway and all that happening.
They're clearing, I think we said like 60,000 square feet
Mhm.
going from woods to grass, presumably, that it may need to be some drainage up there to slow down that water.
Oh, I would assume so, yeah.
But we left it at the time that the engineer would be looking into it. So.
I don't.
If you're the engineer,
I'm-
that back property, it would make sense. It's the engineer, not another engineer. And the other concern is that what Mr. Harpez asked was, is this going to require another stormwater permit? And Mr. Aguirre said probably, because of the amount of disturbance that's going to occur. It's not the same property owner.
Oh, so are they gonna lease that property?
No, they're buying it.
Buying it?
So right, they're leasing the piece they're on, but they're gonna buy the other piece. So it's two separate property owners, so it's a separate stormwater permit for that lot.
Okay,
They're going to disturb more than 35,000 square feet.
yeah, and you'll probably need drainage, because
So when you're talking to them again, say you were at the meeting and the stormwater committee wants to know who's the engineer for the property they're buying. Because if you're going to do it, you need to know it now.
I would like to know. I'm pretty busy.
Well,
try and
that's
schedule
that.
this in.
It wouldn't make sense if there's going to be another engineer. I mean, we're going to be talking the same stuff next summer.
Yeah.
But
I mean, right now, my main focus, just so you guys are aware, I want that basin fixed, just as much as you guys do.
both basins.
Basins, correct, yes. And, unfortunately, that work didn't get done over the summer where it was the perfect opportunity to do so. And I wrote many emails detailing that. But hopefully, everybody's on the right track. All the proper players are going to be involved soon, and they can get that work going. But I am actively working on that.
Who's going to be doing, other than Mr. Pilling, who's going to be doing site inspections when this construction is taking place? So we don't have another repeat
We would be doing inspections.
of stuff in the basin that doesn't belong there.
Correct, yes. I hope that wouldn't be the case, but yeah, we would be doing inspections on that during construction.
Does anyone else have questions, comments? Mrs. Bosalek? You would come up to the podium, please. It's being recorded. You can watch the reruns.
Gloria Bosley, 1680 Pine Street. Just in case this requires more, I know you said it wasn't modification, it was whatever you said. But if it does, it would, so many times we've had plans that don't match.
Yeah, so,
And so planning board won't have that.
right, so at this point, all he's proposing is construction documents for how they have to take what's there now and get it to the approved plan.
Okay.
If they want to change that approved plan, it has to go back to planning board, conservation, and stormwater committee for us to approve, which is why I believe they're going this route of just digging it out and making it what it was supposed to be from day one,
Okay,
which was the approved plan. So as of right now, a lot of water is coming out of that basin, going down the street. Once they fix this, the water should be staying in the basins. That's the intention.
I understand the intentions, but, so if it doesn't drain in the 72 hours as it's supposed to, then what?
Well, then that's a different problem. I don't know, it would depend on what was causing it. Obviously, we have to shoot elevations and make sure it was, like, maybe if they built it too low or whatever, it's gonna depend on what's causing it to happen.
Okay,
But then, yes, it would need to be adjusted in order to meet that.
okay,
But I can't tell you what the adjustment is yet because I don't know what the problem is, because it's theoretical at this point.
all right. And so the last time we were here, I believe, not the last time, the time before, Mr. Aguirre had said that it was supposed to be pumped if it hadn't drained in 72 hours. It's
That's
been
the agreement with Mr.
2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks and we've got a lot of water still in the basin.
We will make a phone call.
Okay.
I know it was in there when we did our inspection. They didn't realize it was still in there.
There's still quite a bit of water in there. So,
When you go out, you'll reach out to Mr. Huffman.
I will, and it will be by phone because I can get access to my email at present.
okay, that's it. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any?
Do that, but the agreement was until such time as the basin was fixed, that they would de-water these basins.
Yep.
So that they would have to hold water during the storm event. Apparently they had a pump since last time. We had about 4.5 inches of rain here in 24 hours, Tom.
Yeah, it's rained.
It's almost like 4 inches of rain.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one item I just want to just kind of mention, I know we had talked about it before, Todd, is the bottoms of the basins. I think having that be some crushed stone with filter fabric,
We had talked about this.
Would-
Right
would
now,
be-
it's supposed to be like grass.
loam and seed, I just want to I would prefer to have a layer of filter fabric and a few inches of crushed stone bottom ground cover. Just so there's no doubt that, any of the loam would impede the infiltration, so everything would just go into the basin. And that would also help by putting that filter fabric down. As the site continues to stabilize more, if it does need to be cleaned out, they can just pull that filter fabric over, pull the stone off to one side, pull the stone out, replace the filter fabric, and then bring in fresh stone and redo that, because that may need to occur after the improvements are done, because the site, as you guys were there a couple weeks ago, it's not stabilized. It's still the pollinator seed they put down last fall has not taken. We had been under severe drought conditions, and it's tough to grow and stabilize a site. But if the work's going to move forward this month, hopefully, and the site's still not stabilized, that's something I'd like to see. For both basins, just have crushed stone at the bottom instead of loam and seed. Now, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, so right now, loam and seed vegetation would grow and everything, and the roots will end up binding it up, and over time, it could reduce the infiltration. The crushed stone makes it so that it's far less likely, but if leaves and stuff fall in, they decompose, you will get plants growing, but it'll take far longer for the basin to fail.
Yep.
I'm okay with crushed stone. I don't know how Mr. Ferry feels about it. You're talking like at least like 4 inches deep.
Yeah, I'd say about 4 inches of crushed stone, because
You're talking like a smaller stone, not like a river.
oh, yeah, like a 1 inch minus. Yeah. So essentially, it's all going to be beach sand, essentially, septic system sand is what I expect for the depth that they put all the garbage fill material in, all the way up. And then that last few inches, whatever, 3 to 4 inches, filter fabric, and then crushed stone, and establish that proper bottom elevation. Just as a little extra helper to make sure that thing drains properly. We're trying to do everything we can to make it a proper infiltration basin.
Yeah, it sounds like a great plan. There's no way of grabbing, like you mentioned, because when constrained care came into winter, no way to grab silt before it goes in there and wreck your fabric.
Yep. No, exactly.
Maybe a roll of stone that upstream, maybe
Yeah.
have that removed.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think that's if that's acceptable, I would like to point the contractor in that direction versus 4 inches of loam and seed at the bottom of the basin.
Just keep telling them, if this doesn't work, we can't go live. I have to tell them that every day. If it doesn't work, we can't go live.
Nope. Right there in the conditions, we understand. Well, I understand and I've conveyed that to them.
I
So
hope you're gonna be with us for a while, Nick, 'cause
I hope so too.
no, but I know that's not your fault. Anyone else have anything? Okay,
The whole thing is to make sure that you don't take any chances anymore. Everything has to be inspected, viewed before it gets,
Oh, 100%. I want Todd out there too, just to,
I think it's.
I know we can't live out there, but
Everything is going.
Yeah.
To hell, every time they do something, they.
I think the
screw it all
biggest
up.
problem was there was no local oversight, and I don't mean local town officials. There was not a person on site who actually looked at the work that was being done. If you sit in a car all day with the AC running and playing with your telephone and only jumping out of the car when a town official comes by, and don't go and look at it, and you're dealing with somebody who, if you told them that's wrong, they tell you, shut up or you're gonna be filling that hole, or to that extent. It's just a matter of, and then the pandemic hit. They couldn't leave the country. They couldn't get into this one anyhow, okay? But all I can tell you is
We covered this.
there was sufficient notification on a regular basis to Grasshopper from me about the problems I observed. And I wasn't on their payroll, so it wasn't like the oversight, there wasn't any, personal opinion. So, okay, so we're all set. This will be on next month's agenda for any updates.
no problem. And like I said, my goal is to get Todd that plan, hopefully, I know you guys are closed on Friday, but so hopefully try and get it to tomorrow. And I know you need some time to take a look at it, but I know they would like to get going before the end of the month. Are you on vacation next week? All right,
They're in a hurry.
maybe I'll send it to you tonight. You can take a look, you can take a look at the draft tomorrow. Let me know if you have any issues. But,
Okay,
so you, just so I know when you'll be out, what days?
We'll talk.
Okay. All right.
okay. So we're all set on this one. This will be on the agenda for next month for an update. So we'll go back to agenda item 4E. Hours of operation for solar farms under construction. Why is this on here?
At the last meeting in my notes, I think we wanted someone to reach out to the planning board and find out what were the actual hours that they were all were allowed to work. But
So our understanding is you can, during the week, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
I know we set that in. We wrote that in.
I don't think anyone's working until 7 p.m. because even though they asked for an extension beyond 5, when I asked if they were doing it, they said they weren't.
I don't recall the time that we sent in, but it was decided on what they could or could not do.
Okay, so Roz, when you have a chance, would you send an email to Carrie and just ask her to check what the planning board set for those hours? Just so,
are we talking all solar farms or are we just talking Arroyos? The way I understood it, was like a general,
I think it should be a general thing.
okay.
and Arujos was going, I think 7 to 5, because they asked if they could go to 7 and we said yes. And when I asked them if they did, they said, no, we didn't find it necessary. And they were going 7 to 5 and leaving a little bit early on Fridays or something.
Yes, but when he was here the last time, he said they were falling behind, so he wanted to work later if it was allowed.
But he was told 7 is it. And that's what we decided to see if the planning board had placed any other hours, shorter hours than 7 to 7 on weekdays. Okay, so if you just send an email to Carrie and ask her to look at that one specifically, but going forward, obviously, we would, whatever they say, we would say, no, planning board set hours for solar farms
Then move the Vernal
under
Pools.
construction at whatever they are, okay? Okay, agenda item 4F, Rescind vote taken on August 17th regarding Hart Street drainage. So I asked this to be put on here because when I was reading the minutes, when this item came up, I initially allowed this to be on the agenda because I thought it was a new problem. It was during the discussion that when I'm listening to the discussion and look at those pictures, I realized this is just a repeat, a rehash of the ones that we said, of the problem we said we would no longer take action on. So the vote had been taken. I asked that the second and the motion be withdrawn. Unfortunately, that was incorrect. Because once a vote is taken, the only way to get rid of it is to rescind it. So I need a motion that we rescind the vote regarding the Hart Street drainage problem.
What was the vote that was made? What was the motion?
Okay, it was moved by Mrs. Catavia, seconded by Mr. Agia, voted unanimously on a roll call vote to send letters to any property owner on the north side of Hart Street if it is determined that they may need to regrade their driveway to help elevate, it should be alleviate. To alleviate the runoff problem. So the motion should be to rescind the vote that authorize sending letters to property owners on the north side of Hart Street regarding driveway regrading.
In that last meeting, no.
I don't remember that.
I do.
I do.
That vote though? I don't remember that motion in that vote.
Yeah, and when I'm reading the minutes, I'm thinking I said the wrong thing. That's not, if the vote is not taken, then you ask for the second to be withdrawn.
Oh, no, it's not that, but I just don't remember that discussion in that vote. I mean, that whole motion, I don't remember that.
Oh,
I think you realized we'd already discussed all this previous, so you weren't really.
you're tuned out.
So
Is there a motion to rescind?
what was the date of that?
Ross,
meeting?
I think I was up there too.
What was the date of that meeting? Because obviously I want to put that in the motion.
August 17th.
I'll make a motion that we rescind our vote taken on August 17th, 2022. That requires sending letters to Hart Street North Side people. That's adequate in the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
You have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Sorry, if you want to discuss.
That's my public input.
Well, we're under discussion right now on the motion.
We're in discussion about a vote.
Aye.
Done.
Aye.
Aye. So we have a majority vote.
Mm.
Agenda item 4D, 2040 County Street. What do we have on that?
Or G.
4G. Lisa, do you have anything cooking on this one?
2040 I do, but not 24G.
No. Agenda item 4G is 2040 County Street.
Yeah. At our last meeting, while we were listening, we had a public hearing presented by the owner to reestablish the wetland line.
This is a Concom meeting, right?
Correct. Established a 25-foot no-touch buffer zone. And as well as allow them to resurface with gravel. They've also agreed to restore within the 25-foot speed and signage and fencing, so we approved that. An order, but we did approve that, so I think it's on there because it's a resurfacing and it may be greater than 35,000 square feet.
Well, and this is why when we do the next one, regulations and bylaws. What is considered disturbance? If somebody's got an existing parking lot and they're just resurfacing it, is it disturbance? Is it not? So ultimately what they've done is like a gravel parking lot now, and it's going to be similar, like they use recycled asphalt or something. So technically it's not really a change.
It's more of a repair of something existing.
Yeah, so technically I don't think it triggers disturbance, but we need to define this in our regulations.
Okay. Okay, so, this is,
We need to kind of define what falls under our jurisdiction compared to planning and conservation.
so this is just an update. Ross, put this one down for the next month's meeting, and Lisa, if there is anything that you want to tell us about, it'll be there. If not, we just pass over it, okay? If anything happens that, for some reason, that everything doesn't fall into place through the Concom action.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree with Todd that I think, resurfacing, we need to clarify that.
I think if you're adding blacktop to blacktop or gravel to gravel, you're just making a repair. If you tear up blacktop and decide you're gonna start putting in gravel or other stuff, I think that's a whole different situation. But in any case, schedule workshop for regulation bylaw review. Since we have 3 regular people missing, Roz, let's see if we can do this outside of the meeting. See if we can come up with some dates, October. See if we can do something then.
Yeah, Jim is off like the last 2 weeks of October. Are you looking to try and do this before our next stormwater meeting? Is that?
Or we may have to set the date at the next meeting.
So Todd's off the week before. Yeah. So we're now down. Oh, I'm sorry.
Tom,
I'm off the last week, next week, so you're talking either the first or second week.
Yeah, but with 3 members, regular members missing, it doesn't.
No, I'm saying that those are the 2 weeks that would be available, so.
we're on meals.
All right, okay,
We'll throw out some dates that work for us.
okay. Agenda item 8A, update Clearway Solar, 1420 and 1522 William Street.
So they cleared the trees, they popped all the stumps and all the rocks, and we went in and did test pits. We did about 10 test pits. And water table was higher than they had previously calculated in their design, so they are redesigning the drainage basins. Then they reached the point where they realized they need some more test pits because they're going to put drainage in areas that they didn't have test pits, since we went back and did another half a dozen test pits. Any day now, I expect to see some revised plans showing a revised basin that has separation to water table that they didn't have. And so we're waiting on that. So right now they're doing some minor underground electric work, running some trenches of electricity in areas that the drainage won't be in, but they're kind of just waiting until they get a revised plan. So hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have a lot more to report.
Okay, so this,
Now, if this changes the drainage, just like we just said to Mrs. Boothwell, if it changes the drainage, it may have to go back to the conservation and the planning board and stormwater to reopen the public hearings. Depending on what they're doing.
okay,
We won't know until we see it.
okay. Any questions, comments, or anything?
Comment would be, I think prior to our next meeting, we should see some sort of restoration of that vernal pool if they plan to do it this fall.
Oh, yes, and they were hydro seeding last week, this week, whatever it was, so it's good timing for hydro seed.
They haven't done it yet. Right?
No, but they're saying on September 14th, they visited it.
Yeah.
Over in place.
Yeah,
Yeah, they didn't say when they're gonna be doing the work, so.
it had been told to us that they would be doing it this fall.
Okay, and the weekly meetings that we get reports, those have been going out to the stormwater committee. Everybody should
Yeah, I checked.
look at them, just so they know what's going on. And the site visit that we had there for traffic control, Mr. Ferry was there. And the 2 chiefs and Peter from Clearway. So it was, the discussion took place and it was left up to, they can make left turns and right turns. Because the problem was the way it was set up, the really big trucks trying to exit needed so much room to exit. They were actually going into the yard across the street to make the loop. And the owner didn't mind. But we said, this is gonna end. So traffic control at that site from the Rujo property will be controlled by whoever's on duty at the detail. You can go either direction, or depending upon the traffic conditions at the time, the police officer will determine what's going to stop and which way the turn's going to go and all that other stuff. So that worked out okay. Agenda item 5B, report on 903 Tremont 624 Middle Street Solar.
The email we got a few hours ago from them states that they have hired a contractor to do the site work. They are finalizing the plans for the building permit application that should be submitted soon. Negotiations with the planning board to finalize the decommissioning agreement to ensure the necessary bonds are in place. And everything's been ordered, and they expect the deliveries to happen in early to mid 2023.
Wow.
And I just want to say that for decommissioning, now that we've got these battery storage units, that's a different dynamic on decommissioning, which I think they have to renegotiate for Brook Street Solar too, or whatever, but, so yeah, so they're still moving forward.
Well, there's one other little snag. I don't know how many times this has come before the Board of Assessors, because it's taken out of 61A and put it back into 61A. Well, you take out this much, but we shouldn't have taken out that. It goes on and on and on. Well, I think most of us remember from the very beginning, it was understood there would be crops planted underneath the solar panels. Well, the legislation was passed that allows that. So the land now has to go back, my understanding is, into 61A. So it'll be coming back before the Board of Assessors, okay? Now, one of the holdups.
But just so for the people at home watching, most solar panels are only a few feet off the ground. These are supposed to be like 8 feet off the ground so they can drive under.
Actually 10 feet.
Or 10 feet, so they can still drive under. Because most people don't picture farming underneath those panels.
I don't know who's been advising them from day one. All I can tell you is it is rare that the same property comes back to assessors, gets approved. No, take it, change that, and then let's go back. And then we had the path that was winding through the thing, and we're going to change. No. Relocate the path to the brook or something. It has come to the assessors so many times that when I heard this, I said, is this the end? Is this going to be the final determination? So, my understanding is at our next meeting, assessors, we have to work with somebody to get this land back into 61A agriculture, because it was taken out, or a portion of it was, a whole bunch was taken out and some was put back, and the part that's still out, it's got to go back. It's just,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There is an issue there because this is gonna still be used as agriculture.
Yeah.
And it's going to be used as farming.
Yeah.
The Middle Street one, they're talking about raising animals there.
Mhm.
And the one on Tremont Street is gonna be. So. Is it gonna be taken out of 61A? And
Put back.
no, why would it be put back?
Because it's already out. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know.
Keep it out, leave it at home.
No, because the legislation makes it,
The assessment,
Huh?
changes the assessment.
exactly.
Well, it does, but you know, the whole thing, what's the argument here is that it's being used as both.
Right.
So where does it go?
Under the new legislation, my understanding, and this is why I don't know who was advising them. somebody should have been advising them, I would think, an attorney who knows something about the chapter land and land. From day one, we heard it was going to be agricultural with solar, and we said, hey, this is the first one we're going to have. Now, somebody advised them to take it out. So land was taken out of chapter, so the assessors acted on it. Then I believe the next thing that happened was we took out too much. So we want to put this much back. So there's still some of it that's out. My point was, why was anything taken out of chapter 61A, knowing the legislation was pending, so that we could have avoided all these back and forth and back and forth? And it's
But with the stormwater committee, we don't have to deal with it.
Yeah,
so,
but we are.
so, the latest thing that I heard, came from whoever is advising them now, notifying the town, the legislation passed, and the land has to go into 61A again. And as I said, when I got the notice, I said to Mrs. Schechter, how many more times are we going to do this? Is this the end? Is this going to be classified? She says, I think so. But again, I don't believe there should have been urgency to pull it out of 61A. Because they said from the beginning that it was going to be agricultural. And I thought, hey, that's like cranberry bogs that have solar on them. Just these are going to be tall ones. But anyhow, the assessors will work through this, but I'm glad to hear that sometime, so that they're going to start clearing the land. Is that what's going to happen?
That's what it sounds like. It said the middle of next year is when the panels are coming, so I assume they start clearing the land in this late spring. I'm speculating. It does sound like it won't happen this fall. It'll be next year, but it's sounds of it.
And this is the one we extended till December 31 of 23, right?
They have to be done by the pilot agreement, by the stormwater, by the planning board, like the conservation, all their things run out at the end of 2023. Yes.
Okay.
Even with the COVID,
Yeah, because it'll be in 1 year, so yeah. Because remember, we're now, this is going into the 4th year of our stormwater.
oh yeah, because I wasn't even here when they, so, yeah.
Anyhow, they have to be in December.
Agenda item 5D, Forest Hills Housing. Anything new on this one?
Nothing since last week. Still waiting.
Have plans been delivered? You don't have plans?
It was only a month ago we did the test pits.
But when I went to the Taunton Conservation Commission meeting, and he asked for another continuance, which he got to, I believe it's November.
Now it's supposed to be coming in for the planning board meeting tonight. I don't know if it's that postponed.
It was their attorney that was at the meeting.
Joe, I don't think they. Did they-
August,
I don't know if they postponed it.
August 15th.
Well, it doesn't matter. This board doesn't have revised plans, so nothing for us to do today.
August the 15th, Taunton Conservation Commission. When he got the continuance, I was saying, you know, Dayton supports that because obviously it hasn't come to us. And the attorney said, I delivered plans today. I said, did Mr. Pilling get some? He said, yes. Surprise. Okay, it'll be on for next month. Public input, all you public,
I have some public input.
go ahead.
Permitting and compliance team meeting, we discussed Max development and some turtles that are out there. And
Development, please.
Maris,
Oh, Maris Lane.
okay, yeah, and basically, there was a short, brief discussion that we should probably recommend to the stormwater committee that discuss limiting the timeframes of maintenance of drainage structures based on,
Natural Heritage, I thought, had a time when they.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
November 1st to March, I believe, or beginning of March. So I think you want to maybe incorporate that.
So when we do our stormwater inventory, we just want to make sure it goes on the Maris Lane, that those basins can't be mowed from March 1st to November 1st or whatever, just so that if in the event the highway department has to go in and maintain them, we don't violate somebody else's condition. That's all I thought.
I think you said the
Yeah.
dates backwards.
Oh, yeah, that they're allowed to. Be allowed to maintain it between that period.
It don't make sense.
Really?
Box turtles move around and.
Yeah, but-
March 15th.
Yeah, but you don't want to damage and you gotta allow the basin to be healed. It's not, they're not gonna be able to grow nothing.
This is their condition.
Let me look.
Actually, don't go any further. This will be an agenda item on the next meeting,
Okay.
simply because now we're getting into discussion and it's not an agenda item. So
Could be
Uh,
universal
you
there.
would give Ross a title that we can, whatever we can talk about that, all right? And in the meantime, Mr. Ferry can check into the critters or the non-critters or whatever it is, the national heritage restrictions, rules, regulations, whatever. Any correspondence other than that message from Mrs.
They had some other public input.
Oh, okay, Mr. Public, go ahead.
How about Lisa?
Forest Hills is continued to October 19th for the planning board. Lisa.
And what?
So Forest Hills is continued to October.
Scott Warren.
I don't know how long we're gonna do this, but
Well, all I can tell you is, at that August meeting, the town Concom chairman again, because he said it in May, so here we are in August, and again, he told the attorney, get this straightened out in Dayton before you come back here again.
Yeah.
So they extended to November. Well, if you're not gonna get it till October, this November thing isn't gonna
So I
happen.
have thrown out at previous meetings that the commission should table it, or the planning board should table it. Which means that when they bring it back onto the table, you have to notify the abutters again, because it's been so long that everybody's forgetting about it.
yeah.
And they can do it by regular mail, not registered, certified, whatever, but just table it. Because nobody can't follow this long, it's too far. If it's 1 month, it's one thing, it's 2 months, okay, but you're at what, a year now?
Oh, he's
Year and a half.
year and a half, okay.
I was gonna say, it came up, it was on the agenda for one of the, maybe the first meeting when we went about Dora Estates. And that's coming up on a year.
And after 2 years, Concom can.
So if you tabled it, they don't have to put it back in the newspaper again, you don't have to certify mail neighbors, but I would require them to send regular, but I'm just a stormwater agent. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just saying that's what I would do.
I'll talk to Carrie about that and see what we can discuss and go.
It's been too long.
Well, in the meantime, I will plan to go to the November meeting.
Thanks for the reminder, too.
Time, go
Is
ahead.
that what you have for public input?
No.
Mr. Ferry, go ahead.
So the Hart Street drainage scenario,
Yes.
so earlier this summer, I reached out to Beta, especially since I found out they were involved with conservation in that same area in the past. And I asked for a quote to design and engineer. And it's that we could utilize there, that ditch, taking that vernal pool that's in question, the outflow, the perched outflow, and some type of water treatment in the ditch. So it's all appropriate, including survey and flagging. Because we had all the new people come in, have to do the same, it's gonna be tit for tat. I had the proposal back in August. I forwarded it to Mr. Mullen, Administrator Mullen, for his review. There has been no comment. So I put it on the warrant article for special town meeting for funding. And I believe the capital outlay is going to review it tomorrow night.
What kind of money are we talking about?
That's 25,000 for the engineering design, about 4,000 to 5,000 for materials, and we do the work. And I need a response from the criminal officer before moving forward, so I bet you nothing's gonna happen.
Except is it on the warrant? We don't know yet.
We can turn, it's all up to the capital outlay committee.
Are you looking at,
Yeah.
are you looking for a letter from the stormwater committee?
You can't vote on that.
No, I understand that, but we could put it on the next agenda, it's gonna be too late. Or whatever.
So the capital outlay committee is supposed to have a process to, for things that come up like this, it's, it's not in a 5-year plan. This has kind of been an old thing. It's not a new thing. It's just, it's evolving still.
As we keep building houses, it becomes more obvious.
There's no way to do work in that ditch right now.
Okay, is there a housing development planned for Hot Street, the north end? Excuse me, the west end? The dead end?
I know.
Not a subdivision, no.
About 100 homes, so maybe it's just a rumor.
I mean, Hunter's Hill is not far from there, but no, not that I know of.
Okay. Anything else under correspondence other than,
Todd mentioned maybe a letter, but can a letter come without a vote?
well, I don't have a problem with that, except that you don't have a vote. When's
You need a vote.
no, better than that, you know what?
Send a letter.
The agenda item. They will be having, what's the town meeting, November?
Tentatively November. The selectmen are going to review the warrant next week based on capital outlays recommendations. That's tomorrow night,
It's posted for November 1st, I believe.
right? Tentatively, yeah. Yeah, that, the reason why you know that date is because they want to secure wherever they have them. Yeah.
So capital outlay is meeting tomorrow night. Are you going to go?
Yes.
What time is
I wasn't asked. I was told to be there.
What time is the meeting?
I don't know.
It's probably after 6:30 because, the chairman works in Boston and I think 6:30 is the earliest he can get here.
Yeah, he might be virtual.
Oh,
4:30 PM
tomorrow
tomorrow
here?
at Old Town Hall. Yep.
Because if that's all in place and then engineering and environmental stuff could happen over the winter, it could be, depending on what is the condition, you'll be ready for this work during the summer. I imagine you're going to want it in the dry conditions.
You sure you're on the agenda
For what?
for the capital outlay committee?
As a troublemaker, yeah.
Well, it says fiscal year 23 capital plan special town meeting articles. Is that what you're? Okay.
Yep. One of them is Hot Street drainage.
And apparently they have an open meeting law complaint that they have to deal with.
Which reminds me, I never got a response when I responded to the complaint we had that said it was without merit because I had read all the blah, blah, blah. I didn't get a response. Any other correspondence other than the email or the message from Mrs. Johnson, which Ross read earlier today? Okay, approval of minutes. So
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 3rd site visit, the August 17th regular meeting, the September 12th special meeting, and the September 12th site visit.
Nancy's got that typo elevate instead of alleviate.
oh, so just say as corrected. Yeah. Is there a second on all the minutes?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye. All right.
Tom, this is all you.
Aye.
Aye.
No, the next motion is.
What?
Item number 9.
No, I can't do that one.
Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion gladly.
Second,
I'll second that too.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 28.
3:28.